Hi, everybody. Welcome to SF Indie Fest, and thanks again for joining me. You had a chance to see the really lovely film Encrypted, and we're lucky enough to have Mayani Nelson here. Welcome, Mayani.
Hi everybody.
Thanks again for being here. I was wondering if you could maybe start off. What was the kind of inspiration for the underlying story, and you knew that this is what you wanted to tell?
So this story started off about a year ago. I knew that I wanted to make something that surrounded a girl who had been misunderstood. However, the story started off completely different than how it ended because over, the course of time, months and months, things just changed, the plot changed. It's a completely different story than how it started. So, but I still had I wanted to tell the intent, highlighting the fact that people struggle in silence. That was like the main thing.
Mm,
It was supposed to be, honestly, I'm a comedic artist. I do comedy. So this was supposed to originally be something funny. But then I was like, I want people to feel this. So it started changing more and more and more, but the underlying theme was just that people struggle in silence. And so over time, I'm yapping to people and just sitting up till 4:30 in the morning, like every single day, just tapping my pen, like, what's the next part? And obviously, a lot of things got cut. But what inspired me to make this film was just the simple fact that a lot of women, a lot of people around the world go through these things. And it really hit home. It really clicked for me. I found that I would talk to people and they would tell me things, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, like that happened to you, or that, and there are things that, the story I related to myself because you always put a part of yourself in whatever you make. So it was just a combination of like people all over the world and things that no one talks about, my personal experience with like mental health and how serious it's taken, or my experience with like, a lot of women as well have had the experience of being, assaulted or something in some kind of way or mistreated, and Black people being mistreated mentally. And so I wanted to kind of combine all of these different into one big story. That way people are like, oh, bam, 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 bam. All these things are talked about and all these heavy hitters just in one chunk. And so, yeah, it started off with just mental health, but then other things that I wanted to shine awareness, shine light on, kind of just dropped into my consciousness. And so I took it and I channeled that, and it kind of just flowed through me as I wrote it.
nice, and based on the way you were talking about how the story was kind of created and written. Was this something that did you get like a final lock script and you went and shot it, or was this what seems to happen sometimes with independent films? It's like, were you doing it in chunks and like coming back to it, and like was the film evolving over the course of filming it, or did you have it all had it all pretty much take shape by the time you decided to start shooting?
It took shape by the time we began to shoot. And honestly, I did make a lot of drafts, but there weren't that many. I made significant changes per draft, and a lot of it had to do with cutting things because I was like, I really want this story to be told in a way where you don't have to see everything to know it, to know what's going
Mhm.
on, because you can convey a lot by saying less and doing less. And I think sometimes less is more and has an impact. So I don't want to talk too much or drag too much out. I just wanted to, you know, hit that part. And a lot of it had to do for me with I wanted the audience to have the freedom to interpret it themselves. So like the ending and, just all the pieces that are like scattered and all the things that circle back and all the breadcrumbs and stuff. It's kind of just like, oh, let me interpret this myself. So I I did a few drafts for some months, but by the time we shot it, it was definitely the structure didn't change. But when I edited it, because I was also the editor,
Hmm.
I did cut some things myself. So even in the post-production process, some things were changed. But as far as production itself, not really. Everything was very, very, very smoothly structured and organized, which is crazy to me because I was like, oh my gosh, like, they're, oh, oh, yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned often that you work in comedy in the sense of like stand-up comedy or comedy in regards to writing. And how do you think that that kind of um, that perspective kind of shaped the way that you wound up kind of crafting the film, even though it's a much more layered sort of story.
Yeah. So I'm a comedic artist in the sense where I pref my strong suit is more comedic elements. So like acting, doing like monologues that are comedic, writing more comedic things. That's more of like where I have fun and I just kind of let loose and it's very natural for me. Whereas drama, because I started off acting, I was never into writing or making stuff. That was kind of like something that kind of fell on top of me and I just like, whoa, what is this over here? Like I didn't know I could do that. And
Mm,
a lot of people ask me like, how did you do this for your first film ever? I'm like, I honestly don't know. It's something that it was divinely orchestrated. But um, so I started off acting and I've always been more like, like my strong suit's always been like more of the lighter, lighthearted, funny, comedic, making everyone smile, making everything, ha ha, you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm,
But drama, I've always been more like in acting wise, I was always more not uncomfortable, but I was always a little bit more reserved when it came to choosing dramatic things because I was like, I have to put more work into this. I have to dissect all this stuff and I have to really get into this zone. So I kind of avoided it. But then I began to, practice more of the craft in the dramatic alleyway. And so that is where this came from as far as dramatic. I was like, do I want to play this safe or just try to challenge? Because this was not, people see this and they're like, oh God, like this is might be dark. She's a dark. It took the other way. But I did, like you asked, how did it relate to this project? A lot of it, a lot of this about this film was about the highs and lows. So I wanted to add a bunch of like lows and add some highs there. So there are some moments in the film where it's like lighthearted, funny, you're vibing with everybody, you're relating, it's funny. And then the next scene is like, oh my God, like it makes it even that much more, heart-wrenching when the last scene was just so the next scene is, oh my God, like because I wanted people to connect with the character through humor and through like lightheartedness, and then the next scene is just like, oh, you're taken with her whenever things happen. So I definitely added, comedic elements to the script to serve the purpose of yin and yang, uh, dark and light, highs and lows, because they balance each other out. And I didn't want the whole story to be, dark, 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 dark. It's just like doing a monologue and you're just yelling the whole time. Like it doesn't make you angry because you're always yelling. I just wanted it to be like da da da, da da roller coaster. Basically, I wanted the audience to be on a roller coaster. And based on the feedback that I was getting after people have seen it, that's definitely what it gave. And so I was really happy that that worked because people were very caught off guard with the dark things after the light things because it's in the darkness that the light hits. If you're in a dark room and the light comes on, and then you turn it off, it's like, oh, so I just wanted people to be blinded back over and over. So that's what the comedy served for
nice.
this. Yeah.
And you mentioned that this is kind of like your kind of first foray into kind of directing a feature film. How did you wind up finding your collaborators? Were they folks that you already were working with, or how did you kind of put together a team to help share the story that you wanted to craft?
So again, this whole project was very divinely orchestrated. I so as far as the actors go, I went to school and I was in the drama department and I knew some actors there already. So it started off with me just hitting up some friends like, "Hey, would you be down to do this project with me?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so that was maybe like three people. And then over that course of the time I was like, "Okay, I gotta find camera guy, lighting, I gotta find a sound person." And so I went to a classroom where I learned how to make a film. I took a film classes where I learned how to do it. And I went to that class and I was like, who wants to help? And people weren't really excited Because when you hear someone like, I'm making a feature film in 6 days, and it was over spring break, everybody wanted to enjoy their spring break, and so people weren't really like me. So I was like, okay, I can't really go this way. Let me go a different way. So I'm on Facebook now, and I'm like, I don't use Facebook, but I'm on Facebook, and I'm just like, who can help me with this? I find a camera guy on Facebook. Very, very great. He had just been starting out, so I was like really honored that I got to work with him when he began, because now he's doing bigger things, which is cool. And then for, the other cast, I posted a casting call, and I knew people who would help me, like my co-producer who would have been here. I knew him from an acting class prior, and it lined up so well.
Hmm.
And then I knew a guy who was able to help me do sound, and then people just began to like people just began to like show up. Like I stopped kind of taking the wheel, and things would just line up like the way they needed to. And I was like, wow. And even the actors, I mean, there were some actors who I casted, then they were like, "Oh, I can't make it anymore." And I was like, "No, like you were perfect for the role." And then I get the next audition, and I'm like, "Oh, he's even better." It worked out even better. And I had a great time. And then even during the shoot, it was so perfect. I've never had a shoot that had no hiccups, but this one, it was just phew. And I was like, okay, all right. So everybody who was on this project, and it was a crew, very small crew, about of 7 people, including myself, and the cast was like 10. And so I was like, small but mighty. Everybody was where they needed to be. Nothing else needed to change. It was exactly how it was supposed to be. And so I'm just grateful that every single person played such a huge role in how this turned out. Like every single person. And I'm very thankful, and I hope the next project can line up the way this did.
Nice. And going into it, was there any particular types of kind of like ways that you wanted to tell, the film visually, or inspirations that you had?
Um, yes. Yes. So the inspiration I had a lot to do with when I first created this idea. Think of it as kind of like not a pie chart. I forgot what they're called, but like there's a big circle in the middle, and then things branch out from
Hmm.
that inner circle. And so the inner circle was going to be, the therapy session. It started off with just being one session. It was going to be like one long session, but things happened. But it was just going to be this centerpiece of a session, and things branching out from it. And I really wanted to play around with, past, present, and future. Um, I was really inspired by like the Christopher Nolan Interstellar movie. I
Hmm.
love that movie. I also love Inception. I just love playing around with like, reality and what's real, and, bringing things full circle and kind of sprinkling, things that make sense. I love movies that you have to watch twice to be like, I didn't catch that the first time. Oh, that's what that meant. And I really like that. So I really wanted to play around with like kind of making people go, oh, what? Like, what is that? What does that mean? And then by the end, it's like, oh, okay, that's clear. Everything comes full circle. And then a lot of the themes I added um were a lot of, foreshadowing and parallel moments. Like, the fact that uh the little boy, her little brother, is going to now have to deal with what she dealt with when she was a child. Or, the stuffed animal coming, and then the little boy has a stuffed animal next. Or the fact that, the mom has to deal with grieving 2 times, and just things tying back, like the end ties back to the beginning, where the first time it was, this dreamy place, and now you know what it is by the end. And, the clock coming back during by the end. And so I wanted to play around with like a lot of parallels and a lot of foreshadowing moments, that just like this quantum entanglement of little plot pieces that go together, and you don't know it until it circles back. And that's kind of how I wanted to like sort it out theme wise.
Very cool. Well, it turned out really neat, and we're so excited to have you as part of SF Indie Fest. Now that you got this kind of first one across your plate, is there second story that's kind of percolating in your mind, or are you kind of enjoying the ride of the first one at the moment?
Oh, there's definitely many stories percolating. My brain is always percolating. My brain never shuts up. In fact, I bounce around so many times from project to project because I have an idea one day and I'm like, oh, ooh, that would be cool too. So I'm writing different things. I have like maybe 4 projects I'm doing at once because I keep bouncing from one to one and I'm like,
Nice.
the next piece for that project just came in. Let me go do that. And then the next day I'm like, wait, the next piece for that one just came in. So I'm really trying to figure out how can I stay on one project and then just develop it and then move on to the next. But it seems like nothing happens in the linear fashion anymore, for me at least. So there's definitely multiple things I have in the works. And the next things that I'm doing, I just did one last month, and I have a new feature that is brewing, and it's going to be much bigger, lengthier, and it's going to be comedic. And I'm so happy that I'm doing a comedic because this is the one I wanted to just start off with. You know, this is where I really shine through humor. And so the next feature that I do will be an absurd comedy. I love absurd comedy. And so that's under my belt, that's brewing, and then I have another short that I'm doing. And then I'm also developing this series that plays with lots of reality things and all of that. So yeah, there's everything is so polar opposite. Every single project is like, that's dark, that's light, that's and I just gotta have that range and that structure because it's getting done. It's gonna get done. But I'm
Nice.
glad the first project, Encrypted, this served as like a testing ground for, you know, making a feature and getting things together and producing my own thing and learning how these things work so that for the next one that's, you know, lengthier and more demanding, I'm like, okay, I have a quite a sense on how this is gonna go. So now I can kind of develop it more and take it further. And I'm glad this served as like a catalyst in a way for me to be more confident in the future projects that I do.
Very nice. And for those who want to continue to follow your work, Mayani, is there a good place to kind of follow you and kind of be on the lookout for the next projects?
Yes, of course. So I my Instagram is Mayani Nelson, MIYONI Nelson. And then the film for Encrypted is encrypted_film on Instagram. And then I have also just launched my own media company called Imagine Media. And the title just serves as, you know, Imagine. And it's my initials. So in case anybody was like, where did the name come from? The M, J, and N are all capitalized because those are my initials, everybody. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I just launched that company, and all the future endeavors that I do will be underneath that name from now on because I'm like, you know, since I made this film, I'm like, okay, I want to make more stuff. I need to create some kind of branch where I can just put everything out and it's all underneath this name, this umbrella. So Imagine Media, IMAJN Media on Instagram. Look out for a future website. This is all just beginning. This is all just planting seeds. So yeah.
Well, congratulations again. We'll look forward to seeing what you're up to next, and so excited about having Encrypted as part of SFND Fest. So thanks again, Mayani.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Have a great day.
You too.